You are listening to transmissions from the planet Zog, Milo and Teal, Book 1, Birds of a Feather, Chapter 2, Birds and the Bees. The question of how to arrange a communication between bird and human may never come up in our world, but this was not an infrequent occurrence on Zog. It was common knowledge both animals and humans were sentient feeling beings with their own unique emotions and energy frequency. All that needed to be done was to tune into each other for communication to take place. It is at this point that I feel it important to fill you in on some of the details of everyday life on the planet where Milo and Teal live. You see, libraries on Zog are not just bookish places where you can go and choose your next picture books and paperbacks. They're places for information exchange. Almost everyone on Zog owned a pod, a device to remember dreams, ideas and visions, all of which could be translated and uploaded to the many libraries networked silver spider-like across the lands of Zog. Once information is collected and shared there, much like our internet, anyone can find it. The truly exciting thing about a Zog library is that any subject can be located by all manner of automatic searches run for you from your pod. The real difference being all of your emotions, your feelings about the things you experience in life are calibrated and held within the memory of this biological machine. This intelligence, drawn from your thought patterns, also trawls through the hourly influx of new information arriving in the libraries. Clever scans measure the emotional resonance of every new entry in the library and match them up with the dominant emotional signatures of each pod. So rather like you or I receive the odd text throughout the day, Zoggians get little alerts on their pod as to interesting projects they may want to get involved with, each one fitting nicely to the way they feel and their interests. Each time something appears which you might well savour and enjoy, your pod will light up and perhaps even play your favourite tune, and you'll know there's something juicy for you to link into and get involved with. You might ask me how I know all of this, and truth is, I have experienced it myself, but that is a whole nother story. Launching the bombing bird story in the library was how Milo and Teal chose to stir the imaginations of Zoggians to their assistance. Animals and people there live in close harmony with each other, getting on very well, because the Zoggian people have mastered the art of listening to animals. They were genuinely interested in what they had to say about the world. A bombing bird certainly had much to say, and Milo and Teal very much wanted to find out what this was, as well as communicate and discuss their own plans. Their mother in her workshop. While their mother continued her special rug weaving, the children poured out their urgent request. Having stirred Sonia's excitement about the prospect of speaking to the mother bird of the tiny baby Teal cradled in her hand, she understood that something had to be done quickly. Baby birds, no matter how brave and bold, need to be fed by their mothers frequently, especially if they can't get fly, and this one couldn't. Holding out her husband Freydal's hat, Sonia asked Teal to lay the fledgling in a nest of the softest offcuts from the rug weaving, in order to keep it warm. Milo and Teal's mother was generally ready to pause her beautiful work in case of her children's emergencies of excitement. Laying her shuttle on the weft of the current piece at her loom, she finished off a series of knots, which held the fabric memories of the last year into her beautiful piece, and got down to the business of helping Teal register the occurrence at the library. With some more local help, she felt sure the children could both reunite the baby bird with his mother safely and begin their work of learning to communicate with the birds for the sake of their own plans. Within seconds, they had uploaded the sound of the bird's voice, which would help other experts identify the species, and laid out the wishes of the children and the beetle bombing episode. To record images, the frequency of an emotion and sounds were perfect for transmitting complex, multidimensional information. Within seconds of Sonia pressing the button to upload, people started to announce their bird communication abilities and their wishes to come and help with the business of bird interpretation. When Emmeline's name popped up, Teal pressed hit and invited her over to come and help them. Emmeline, being her favourite cousin, a little older and more experienced with several things, was great fun to undertake adventures with. There was no need for Teal to inspire someone who had already expressed real interest. 10 minutes later, while enjoying a little lunch in the kitchen, Teal and Milo began to learn the art of feeding a baby bird. The little thing sat on the table in his makeshift scrap-lined nest, uttering a series of squawks and tweets as he was fed snippets with a small pair of tongs. Teal longed to understand him better, fretting that they hadn't given him what he truly wanted, a return to his mother's nest. Their fret was unnecessary, however, as they watched the fledgling gobble a small chopping of worm they'd extracted from beneath the garden water butt. He chirped long and loud, and then dozed into a sleepy torpor. Gently they eased the disjointed feathers back into their rightful place, and discussed how they could transport the baby back to its nest high up in the tree. In the watchful presence of his mother, Milo had climbed the tree searching for the nest. Carefully stacked behind the top of the treehouse roof, she had laid her twigs to form a peculiarly neat hexagon, the kind of shape you see more in the honeycomb of beehives than in the curves and spikes of a bird's nest. She was a honey bird, working with the bees to bring in just the right amounts of the flower seeds, dusted with the pollen the bees so liked, and in return she was given access to the waxy drippings of the hive, which she would suck off, warm, and feed her baby chicks, mixed with worms and insects during their fledgling period. The bird would fly far and wide looking for the seeds of the flowers so adored by the bees. The flower seeds they ate required chemical digestion of the birds before they could germinate and sprout into new plants. They lasted but a short, luxuriant season. Without the bird's contribution, the bees' honey was softer and more runny, but with her help, they could build reserves of the deepest, richest nectars, which helped to feed and sustain the new queens of the hive's future generations. As everyone on Zog knew, the more bees, the merrier. Waiting for Emmeline's arrival, Milo and Teal sat on the edge of their treehouse and pondered the best way to achieve the baby bird's recovery to the nest. "I think singing would be the best way," said Teal. "We could use our high voices and tell the bird what we want." She knew even if she could not mentally understand their language, a connection could be formed by getting in touch with her core, which linked to all living beings. She could do this through singing and allowing her mind to relax into state of receptivity to the perfect words. These could then hold an emotional connection to the spirit or energy of the bird and reveal her intentions towards it. And those of, if you knew Teal, and you are starting to, were always benevolent. "That's fine," replied Milo. "I can tune in with my imagination as you sing. Together we can seed ideas into the bird's mind and then watch and see which one she chooses." This is what Teal sang. "Are you doing your work, living your life, raising your chicks? You live high in this tree, the tree for Milo and me and you. We have a plan, we want you to have more than a say in. Up where you are is the perfect place for us to plant our treehouse second story, a little place for our private glory, a little corner off. I can see a branch divide. It's a place where you and your children could hide, where you and the honeybees could entertain at ease. It is possible you could consider using this new space. We can help you move, we can help smooth the transition for this thing we are wishing, and for you and your new place. Could you move? In the branches a level rest, wide enough to fit your nest. Below is a nook where the bees could stack their hexagons, fill them with nectar and honey from your seed-gathering chest. With some help we could carry you up and help you nest in the new place. Can you agree? It would give you a more protected space, hidden from thieves, hidden from the wind, great green leaves sheltering the bees. Let us know with your message. We will be waiting patiently." Listening to Teal's song with his back firmly resting against the tree trunk. Legs stretched out in front on the ground, he hummed along and painted pictures in his mind to accompany Teal. In his mind's eye he saw their new nest, perfectly cradled within the high branches of their tree. In the centre of this nest lay 5 squawking baby birds, each dripping honey from their beaks. Below, situated a whole handspan away from the birds, he could imagine the corner of the honeybee nest, glorious in its hexagons of honey-glazed wax sheets. He imagined the two of them, Teal and himself, swathed in net to keep the bees from landing on their skin. They would both carry up the honey-filled abode and the bird's nest. A terracotta tray could help steady the beehive, the place of the branch which had once anchored them. In this new home, there'd be multiple advantages. The birds and the bees would be closer, so that less pollen and honey would be lost in transfers from beak to hive. The new position they had chosen was more sheltered, so less bees would die off in the cold and windy spells. As he thought and imagined these things, the mother bird swooped down to his side, registering his thoughts. She simply pecked gently at Milo's shoelace, and then flew up into the tree, high up to the new spot which both children had been so carefully envisaging. Teal looked downwards towards Milo, and they nodded. It had worked. Emmeline and Foni had arrived to assist in this interesting transfer of nests, having responded to the library broadcast. As Emmeline and Teal discussed the bird's obvious sign of approval, Foni congratulated Milo and Teal on their discoveries in bird communication. Both of them sporting their own language abilities, the girls whistled what sounded like Morse code to the bird for a few minutes. The mother then flew away from her nest and up towards the new, chosen position for her nest. For the 2 volunteers, the project was interesting in a multitude of ways. Not only would they be carefully moving an active bird's nest containing 5 babies and a beehive, but they might help with the new hire tree house and platform. These could be built with some innovations in the way it was attached to the tree itself. Talking and listening to elements of nature was always a win-win on Zog. It was no wonder that Emmeline and Foni, both teenagers, should wish to donate their time and energy to such a project. The fact that Milo and Teal were considerably younger than them really had no bearing on the fun they knew they'd have. Each person here was acting only from their own sense of highest excitement. There was not a single trace of what you or I would have been trained to endure, that of obligation.